Thousands of people marched in cities across France in tribute to Samuel Paty after the 47-year-old school history teacher was murdered on Friday. He was killed after he showed a caricature of the Prophet Muhammad to his pupils. Over 80 messages hailing the murder have now been found online, according to France's Defence Council. Well, the government has renewed its pledge to tackle radicalisation and also those organisations that promote hate and violence. Michael Daventry has more.
Thousands of people turned out across France, including this crowd at the Place de la République in Paris, to pay tribute to a history teacher who was beheaded on Friday after discussing cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad with his class. The demonstrators said they were there to support freedom of speech after Samuel Paty was killed by an 18-year-old Chechen refugee who was later shot dead by police. Trade unions and political figures, including France's Prime Minister Jean Castex, were in the crowd. Later on Sunday, he tweeted footage of the crowd singing the French national anthem. He also wrote the words, "You don't scare us. We are not afraid. You will not divide us. We are France." The crowds also turned out here in the northern city of Lille, as well as other major cities, including Lyon, Toulouse and Strasbourg. There was also a march in Conflans-Sainte-Honorine, the town where the teacher was killed. Police were still stationed outside the school. So far, authorities have taken 11 people into custody, including one schoolgirl's father, who reported he called for action against the teacher following the class discussion.
Well, we can go to Samuel Paty's school now. Our international correspondent Annalise Borges is there for us. Annalise, just explain to us what it was like, the huge public outcry in France, particularly in Paris over the weekend.
Good morning, Rosie. Well, people were out by the tens of thousands across major cities in France yesterday to express their shock and disbelief with regards to what happened here in this very area in the northwest of Paris on Friday, but also to express their resolve, their resilience, their resolve to fight ignorance and to defend freedom of speech, one of the core values of the French Republic.
The French Defence Council met last night, and there seems to be, Annalise, this renewed sense of urgency to tackle radicalisation. We've seen that over the last 5 years, but there was a real sort of urgent message last night. What did they have to say?
Indeed, Emmanuel Macron spoke about fear changing camps, saying that it was no longer the French citizens that should be afraid of terror, but the other way around. Those who think about committing acts of violence, they should be scared of the government's response. Emmanuel Macron also then gathered 6 ministers in a 2-hour meeting to decide on what actions should be taken here onwards. They spoke about more policing in schools, but also more policing online, Rosie. They have been speaking about bringing immediate action against those who commit acts of violence, but also against those who spread messages of hatred. And so far, the police have identified some 80 messages of support of the act of violence that was committed here, of the beheading of Samuel Paty, that history teacher. And those 80 messages will be investigated. Police said they will be contacting the authors of each one of those messages identified online to understand the intention behind each one of those messages. They've also spoken about the expulsion of some 200 foreigners who are currently under surveillance here in France. Those were some of the measures announced by the Interior Minister of France. And of course, we also understand that an 11th person has now been arrested in connection with the killing of Samuel Paty. All that, of course, part of an investigation, but there's a lot of resolve on the part of the government, but also on the part of citizens that gathered all over France yesterday. The idea really is that this act of violence will not stand. Rosie.
Annalise, thank you very much, our international correspondent, and we'll have more on this story across the morning.